Hey, deserving listeners, a lot of you have been asking me to react to this video in which Ned Fulmer and Ariel Fulmer have a conversation about his infidelity in the past. If you don't know the story, it was a very public scandal in which he cheated on his wife Ariel with one of his producers. He's a famous YouTuber, or he was anyway. So I thought that this might be right up my alley. I don't know what they're going to talk about. I specialize in infidelity and working with couples. So I thought I would watch. But first, I thought I would review the story. The scandal was 3 years ago. I made a video about it back then. But for those of you who aren't familiar with the story, I thought we would watch Philip DeFranco, who I'm a fan of. He has a news YouTube channel, and he made a few news clips about this. Let's watch Philip DeFranco summarize it.
So if you don't know who the Try Guys are, they're a massively popular group online. They got their start with BuzzFeed, then branching out on their own, absolutely crushing it. And each of the four kind of have their own thing that they're known for. I kind of thought of them like as a boy band group in that aspect. And one of them, Ned Fulmer, was known by many as the I love my wife guy. But apparently recently rumors have been popping up that he actually cheated on his wife. And the talk around this started to increase as people seemed to notice that, hey, did they cut Ned out of this video and that video? And then someone posted blurry media that appeared to be Ned and some other woman kissing. Then even more people jumped on this story when it came out that the person that he was with was actually an employee. The Try Guys released a statement. Ned Fulmer is no longer working with the Try Guys. As a result of a thorough internal review, we do not see a path forward together. We thank you for your support as we navigate this chain.
All right, so that's a summary of the story to catch us up. That was 3 years ago in 2022. Now we're in 2025. And this video is from a YouTube channel called Rock Bottom with Ned Fulmer. And it looks like he has an intro here before he talks with Ariel.
Hi, I'm Ned Fulmer. 3 years ago, I cheated on my wife with my producer. It became a massive public scandal that caused a lot of pain to a lot of people. I know that I represented myself as a kind of wife guy who talked about his relationship and put that out there for public consumption. And you, as a viewer, I know that I broke your trust.
Yeah, I think I talked about this in the video that I made a few years ago. I'm not remembering exactly what I said in that video, but I will say that there's this question about parasocial relationships, right? If you are a fan of the show, particularly if you had been a fan for a long time, then it can be really upsetting, even dysregulating, to learn that he was cheating for a while, right? It can feel upsetting, and we have to ask why. Well, if we have that in our own histories, or we have things that are similar to that in our lives, it can touch on that. Also, parasocial relationships are real relationships. They're not fake. They're not false. There can be this confusion at times with parasocial relationships where we feel like they are in our lives and that their scandals actually are directly affecting our lives, which they are not. So there's that. There's also a lot of loneliness in the world. And when we don't have other close relationships in our life, we might perhaps over-depend on these parasocial relationships. But having said all that, I will say that there's nothing wrong with getting upset. Now, what do we do with that upsettedness? Do we dox or attack or something like that? No.
I betrayed my spouse, co-workers, friends, family, and I betrayed you. It was understandably a messy and devastating situation for everyone involved. And I was the cause of it. I did that.
Yeah. So, yeah. It could be fake, could be manufactured, could be rehearsed. This could be his 20-second take. There could be a team of PR people and lawyers right off camera that are giving him the thumbs up on this take. We don't know. But I will say that of the I don't know what you call it, coming to Jesus videos that people will make. Coming clean, probably a better term. This one is, it's going well so far. He's just like, I did that. I did that.
Can't change it. I can't change the past. I can own it and accept it and try to change how I show up differently in the future. I wanted to say that I'm sorry. I hurt you. And I hope to make amends over time. And one step is to publicly witness the pain of my partner, Ariel.
From the sound of it, it sounds like he's saying that interviewing Ariel and taking his licks, if you will, her able to speak her mind to his face and he just take it, is part of his making amends, as he says.
So please join me for this conversation with Ariel Fulmer. Well, here we are.
Back again.
again.
All right, so this is the list. I came up with this not only as a clinician, but also as a podcaster, as a YouTuber. And I came up with this for the purpose of working with my clients. And then I thought I would publish it. So, number one, did he acknowledge the transgression? Yeah, he said, I did this. I think he literally said that phrase. I have these little examples there. Did he acknowledge the harm, meaning that at least to some extent you acknowledge that not only did you do something, but you caused harm? Yeah. Did he take responsibility? Yeah. Did he sincerely express remorse? Well, that's kind of up to you to decide. It looked sincere to me. Number 5, explain the cause without making excuses, meaning that he at least alluded to the fact that he has problems that he needs to work on. You know, it's great to apologize, but if you haven't shown your work as an apologizer, then the apologizee, the person who was transgressed upon, has no reason to believe that it won't happen again. Meaning that if it happened once, or perhaps many times, then it's likely to happen again unless, as the transgressor, you have done the work, gone to therapy, given it some thought, investigated, asked around, and have come up with a cause. You know, this is why I did that thing. And this is often a missed step. So those are the first 5 that I come up with that you can do in the immediacy. The rest of them are more for ongoing apologies that I will facilitate in my practice. All right, on the grading scale, the rubric that I have here, compared to others, I would definitely give, if we're grading on a curve, I would say that it was a B minus C plus. All right, let's watch the interview.
It feels weird. It feels a little awkward.
Yeah. Back in a podcasting room.
Yeah.
I will say right off the bat, there's a hum. There's a pretty annoying pronounced hum. I don't know if you can hear it. Maybe I'll try to EQ it out.
I want to be just sort of seen as the sum of your mistakes for me, and or the sum of your past for you.
Right.
And the challenging thing is it's been complicated for a while. I mean, we are still friends. We have children together. We go on trips together.
Right.
Like, you know, there's a spectrum of being together, not together.
He is just revealing that they are friends, that they're co-parenting their kids. There's also people emailing me saying that this is a very awkward conversation, but it doesn't look awkward to me at all, honestly. I mean, it's not like as polished, I'm guessing, as the presentations that we've seen him in the past, but on the scale of awkwardness, it's going pretty well. Maybe it's because as a therapist, I live in awkward, or at least conversations about awkward things or things that aren't comfortable to talk about. But so far, they seem to be comfortable talking to each other, which is good.
The way that everyone wants to know, like, are you guys still like an item? Are you guys still a couple? Like, no. We really haven't been at all this last 3 years.
No, we haven't.
All right, so they're saying they haven't been an item for 3 years, right?
Like, there's moments when we kind of tried, but just because you go to a Taylor Swift concert together doesn't mean that you're, that
Doesn't mean
all
that
is
you're
forgiven
together.
and you're.
No, like, people ask me, like, do you forgive Ned for what he did? And I mean, the answer is no. Absolutely not.
All right, so I came up with the following definition in my deep dive on apologies. You can listen to that if you're a patron of the podcast. But I came up with this after reading the clinical literature, after also reading lay person literature and thinking about it clinically myself with my clients, and also thinking about forgiveness and apologies as a human being. Forgiveness is an intentional process that eventually results in a decision to end one's negative attitudes and feelings towards the transgressor regarding a particular transgression. So let's break this down. An intentional process, meaning that it's a process that takes time and it's a choice that you make. You intend to do it. It's not something that just sort of happens. And it's also not usually, particularly with larger transgressions, it's not something that you just decide in the moment. It's a process that you go down. It's sort of like grief. So an intentional process that eventually results in the decision to end one's negative attitudes and feelings towards the transgressor about that particular transgression. So you can forgive someone about one transgression, but not others. So that's the definition. Now, it's important to note that forgiveness can occur regardless of the transgressor asking for forgiveness. So say someone hurt you and then they die before they ever apologize, you can still go down an intentional process of eventually resulting in not having negative feelings and attitudes about that transgression towards that person. Also, forgiveness can be granted or decided upon. And we have those language like we grant forgiveness, we give someone forgiveness, but you don't have to even see it that way. You can forgive for your own reasons, not as a gift to the other person. But you can also forgive someone who doesn't deserve to be forgiven. That's just up to you. Also, forgiveness can be internal and private, but it could also be expressed to the transgressor or to the public. It's important to note that forgiveness is different from forgetting. Those are different things. Or approving. Definitely forgiveness is almost never approving of the behavior because it's transgression. Also, forgiveness does not necessarily mean re-engaging. So she could forgive him and still not want to be with him anymore, that kind of thing. Also, it's important to note that in our culture, we have a lot of pressures from either side. You will have people pressuring her to forgive because it's the Christian thing to do, or it's the thing to do because otherwise you're holding on, you're not letting go, you're choosing to be angry and bitter or something like that. That's not the case. Forgiveness, those things can get in the way of one's forgiveness, but that's a choice that you can make for yourself. If she wanted to remain bitter and angry and not forgive him and quote unquote hold on to this for the rest of her life, that would be fine. And there's nothing harmful to her or anyone else around her to make that choice. That's case by case basis. But you'll also get pressure from the other side that will say that she should never forgive him because to do so would be to approve of it or to have a bad, to be a bad role model for other people who have been a victim of this sort of thing. And no one can tell her what she should do about this. So she has not forgiven him. Okay.
How can you forgive somebody for lying to you, for cheating on you? No. Fuck no.
So from that statement, it sounds like for her, forgiveness is very much tied to letting it go and re-engaging, which some people will define forgiveness that way, which is fine. But it doesn't have to involve that. You can forgive and absolutely remember what that person did to you and incorporate that into your approach to that relationship.
Like grieving the past, and it's hard to hear you saying like, fuck no, I don't forgive you. Of course I get it. I mean, you're still, as much progress as we've had, you're still very angry.
Yeah, of course I'm angry.
That's that part of that definition. So when I say an intentional process that eventually results in a decision to end one's negative attitudes and feelings. Maybe I should modify that a little bit. It's a choice to end one's negative attitudes and feelings, but it's also kind of a natural change that we go through as we go on that process. But at any rate, she is saying, I'm still angry. Yes, I'm very angry. So that's that part of it of still having negative feelings about the transgression. And until those feelings go away, or until she's ready to not have those or not entertain those feelings anymore, then she's not ready to forgive.
I found out about your affair from the fans. I mean, and I was so blindsided that somebody sent me a picture, and I couldn't. It was like my brain couldn't compute.
That's interesting. I was wondering where she was when she did find out, because it could have gone a lot of different ways. She could have said, I had wondered about it all along. I had suspicions, or because you cheated before, it was nothing new, or our relationship was going so bad behind the scenes, or whatever. But it sounds like none of that was true, that it was completely out of the blue, and it didn't compute. And I have worked with a lot of people and their stories. Sometimes I'll have a client who, in between two sessions, will have an event like this, whether it's a couple or an individual client. And so sometimes I'll be there almost at ground zero as it's happening. I had a client where his wife butt dialed him while she was having sex with the guy. So it can be extremely difficult, obviously, and can be very disorienting, and can even be traumatic to the point of creating PTSD. I had a client who had PTSD, all the symptoms. I did a full assessment. I used the TSI-2, all that kind of stuff. And I tried to figure out what the trauma was specifically. She identified it was a moment like this, but that's not typically what we will see as a cause of PTSD 2 years later. But after doing a thorough assessment, there was no other candidate. And the way she described it was akin to this. There's various different reactions to discovering infidelity. And one of the reactions that I've learned over the years is to actually have a terror response, because it throws everything into question, which is normal, right? But it can be very scary to suddenly realize that your entire world is not as it seems. You start to wonder, well, what else is wrong about my assumptions? Is it wrong to assume that anyone cares about me, that anyone is telling the truth to me? Am I an idiot? Can I depend on my own judgment? Like, it can really be a scary moment. It's not the typical reaction. I mean, there's always a bit of that, but the sort of terror response and the adrenaline and the neurology of trauma, she's not saying that yet. Maybe she will, but so just to wrap up that story, I had that client and I did that assessment, and I went on the assumption that it was that discrete moment where she found out that her husband had been cheating. And when we did the regular exposure therapy on that traumatic event, the PTSD symptoms went away. So it was very clear that that was the trauma that caused PTSD. And side note, it's very annoying that in the current DSM language, she wouldn't qualify for PTSD because the trauma doesn't fit the criteria for trauma, and it's really annoying. I've always suggested that the DSM just have language, and instead of adding all these scenarios that qualify as trauma, they should just say that the individual has a terror response to an event and just have a general state. Anyway, but yeah, so she's saying it was a shock, and it didn't compute.
It's like for some reason I didn't see what was actually there in the picture. I thought it was your sister. And I remember sending it to you and being like, what's your sister doing in New York?
I'm hearing a little bit in her voice of seeing that self 3 years ago and either being astonished with that reaction of hers or maybe even some judgment, like, how could I be so stupid? Or if so, I would say there's no judgment that would be justified there. A lot of people, when they experience something like this, will beat themselves up, say, I should have known. And they'll get it from the outside too. They're so public, I'm guessing they got all the stigma from all the different directions, including this one. It's just a guess, but it'll come internally anyway. It doesn't take a genius to know that people can cheat very effectively, meaning that you're not stupid if you didn't see it. One, if you're a good person, you tend to trust people. Two, given his lifestyle, I'm just going to take a guess, travel and video making and all the things that are involved in that probably created a lot of situations where he would be gone for hours at a time and would have a viable excuse, Plus, it was with a coworker or an underling, depending on how you look at it, and they would naturally be together all the time. It sounds like she's saying, I was looking at a picture and I just couldn't accept it. My brain saw your sister, like I was going into denial, which we'll do even under calm circumstances, but our brains, when we're under threat, will engage in denial at times. We might hear stories or have been through situations where someone will die and it will be, the individual will be informed of the death, and the individual won't accept it. They'll say, no, they're not dead, because, it's overwhelming. It's too much for the mind to handle.
And I think back on that and I think, like, what was I, like, how did I not see?
Right, that's what I was wondering. It sounded like she was judging herself, and I hope that she's on the road to not judging herself, because it's totally normal. What it says is that she's a good person who trusted her husband, who probably had never given any indication of cheating in the past.
What was going on? Like, what was so fucked up in my brain that I couldn't actually see what was happening in this picture? Like, the picture was right there in front of me. Mm-hmm.
It is interesting, though, and I think she's engaging in that as well, of fascination with one's brain. And yeah, it is fascinating.
That this car has a camera. It was like, I think that person just took a picture of us. And so we went inside and we talked about it a little bit, and then we had our therapy session, and then we came out, and then there were multiple people outside, and it was probably one of the strangest situations that I personally have ever been in. I did not know what to do with my face. And so my reaction when I don't know what to do with my face is I smile.
Yeah.
All right. So from context, I'm guessing that this video or these videos and pictures went on the internet, and a lot of people might have been commenting on it, maybe judging her, which is horrible. I write about this a lot in my book on grief that I'm going to publish hopefully sometime soon, that when people, particularly women, when they have reactions that are deemed by the public to be incongruent with the situation, then they are judged from afar. I just don't understand why people don't realize that public figures aren't in a constant state of whatever you think they should be feeling or thinking or something. I don't know. But anyway, so maybe some people thought that she was faking the whole thing, or it was all, there's always an accusation of they're just doing this for clout, they made up the affair or something. I just, yeah. I mean, one, why are people following them around? Why are they taking pictures of them? So, yeah, yikes.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of sort of delusions and rationalizations that you, as the person doing that, sort of are telling yourself as to why it's not so bad, or why.
Yeah, just a little comment on what he's saying there. He's saying that he had, looking back, he had very dubious justifications for continuing or starting the affair. And that's very, very common. I've had many conversations with cheaters before, before actually, I was going to say not before, but before, during, and after infidelity. I've worked with clients at all stages of it. Before, meaning I can see the writing on the wall that they're heading down a road of possibly cheating in the future. I can never predict the future, but I will hear certain things, certain urges that they'll have. Typically today it involves making an anonymous profile on a dating app or something like that. And there will be a justification for it, like, oh, I was drunk the other night and I just thought it'd be kind of fun to just experiment and just kind of play around. I was just doing it on a lark. Now, it might be that, but it can be a sign. Anyway, obviously talking with people during the affair and talking with people after, and they will all have this, unless they're a psychopath, which is not usually the case. For psychopaths, they might make justifications as well, but they don't have to because they don't have empathy for people. So for the rest of us, the vast majority of us that have empathy, I'm assuming that he has empathy, typical compassion and care for others, that in order for him to do this, he had to do a lot of mental gymnastics to justify it to himself. And that's almost always the case. Also, it's important to note that these justifications occur slowly and iteratively over time. Like the example I gave where, I'm just doing this on a lark. You could argue for, the person could say, I'm not cheating. I'm just doing this as a silly experiment, and I wasn't actually going to meet up with anyone. I wasn't even really flirting. I was just kind of browsing just to see what people are doing, or I was researching for a book or whatever. So every step of the way, the justification is a small step forward. But by the time they're caught, the justifications will be bizarre. People will have absolutely bizarre justifications and compartmentalization of what's happening. I don't know for him, but given what I'm gleaning from context, I wouldn't be surprised if he had a justification like, well, it's just temporary, and it's not even that big of a deal, because the woman that he had an affair with, I think, was engaged or was in a long-term relationship herself, and he could say, we both have our lives, so this has to end at some point. Or, look, I'm on the road, and we're both on the road, and we're both lonely souls, and so we're just a little reprieve from all of that while we're doing all of our things together. Or another justification is, well, Ariel, we've had our conflicts, and she refuses to talk about them. So what else am I supposed to do? None of these are viable justifications for repeatedly lying over and over and over and over and violating the trust and the agreement over and over. I say this because often cheating, especially by cheaters, will be equated to a mistake that just happened once. And no, even if the infidelity is for a week, the number of choices the individual made to lie, either flat out lie or lie by omission or risk harming the person, if you actually just broke it down by decision, it would be in the thousands. And especially if it's over a long period of time, there are, depending on how you categorize a moment in time in which you can decide to go this way or that way, it could be in the millions. Because at any point in time, he could have decided not to do this. He could have told Ariel about it. There's so many times when he could have decided a different thing, and he kept deciding to have the affair until he was caught. That's another detail. He did not come clean. He was caught.
Why it's going to be okay, or why actually this talked about in this way. And then it's like, I remember that moment, it all just kind of like fell down, where I totally could see how devastated and just completely traumatized you were.
So it's good that he's talking about this, and this is also almost universal, and something I will hear almost universally, if not universally, from cheaters when they are coming clean, either in individual therapy or in infidelity recovery. They will say, all of a sudden it just hit me how much harm I was causing. And from the outside, it might sound like, what? It doesn't take a genius to predict or know that you're harming someone by doing that. What are you talking about? But like I said, the mind can do a lot of different mental gymnastics. Now, it doesn't mean that it's okay. It doesn't mean that you should trust this person. So this is, I'll just tell you from my personal, people can make their own personal choices, but this is not me talking as a clinician. It's more me talking as a person. If I were in a relationship with him romantically, and I was trying to make a decision as to whether or not I wanted to be in a relationship or build it back or something, I personally, given everything I know about personality and human development and psychology and infidelity in particular, I'm guessing I would not conclude that he was likely to be a psychopath, likely to not have empathy, or not to be a narcissist, as people on TikTok will call him. I don't know if they're calling him that, but I'm just going to take a guess. So I would not conclude that. What I would conclude is there's something deeply wrong with him that resulted in him not only beginning the affair, but continuing with it while still telling me that he loves me, right? My dogs are barking. That must be a delivery at the door. So that would be a huge hesitation for me and consideration before continuing a relationship with him. You see, there's a difference there, right? There's a difference between concluding he's a psychopath, he has no empathy, I'm in danger, I should never be with him. I would not make that conclusion. But I still might not want to be with him because whatever was wrong with him that caused him to do this in the first place for so long and so self-destructively, right? Whether it's a problem with denial or a problem with passive-aggressive personality disorder, I've done a deep dive on that, or some other kind of trauma. There are versions of avoidant attachment that can manifest in this kind of infidelity. Avoidance of conflict can actually be one of the reasons, because he avoided. There's actually some signs of that, yellow flags of that, in the way that he talks, where with Ariel he could have had minor complaints, as we do in relationships, but could never say it even to himself. And it would just sort of brood inside of him, and then it starts to manifest in some very strange ways and justifications. Anyway, I'm not saying that's the case, but the point is that that's what I would be thinking. It can be deceptive sometimes because cheaters can sometimes be very apologetic and say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again." Well, how would you know they're not ever going to do it again? Because you didn't know they were going to do it in the first place. They didn't even know they were going to do it in the first place. How do you know they're not going to do it again? Now, the path forward is a lot of in-depth individual therapy to get at the cause or the set of causes that led to that behavior and those tendencies, and then a pathway of healing those issues so that they're less likely to happen again in the future. All right, just chiming in here, this is the end of part 1. Tune in next time, maybe tomorrow, I'm guessing, when I publish part 2. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.